It's Sunday night, and we still have playoff football on because as of right now, the Eagles and the 49ers are still playing. But why watch them when you can watch all the shenanigans here on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast? We're a lot more fun and a lot less painful. The Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. If you'd like to support us, you could do your Amazon shopping using our referral link, and this way Amazon throws us a little bit of coin, and that helps to keep the live Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, which is what this is now. It keeps it commercial free, and a number of you have done that, and we appreciate very much those of you who have done your holiday shopping on Amazon. And if you're still looking for a weather station, look no further than Tempest by WeatherFlow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system and join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. The link for this is on the top of the chat board tonight. It's also on the description to this podcast on YouTube, along with the Amazon link. And we have our special coupon code, Joe Rayo.
Yes, and it's an update from what we've had for most of the past month, but about a week ago, Joe was finally able to change it, and here it is, winter 2026. And if you use that coupon code in conjunction with most anything that you purchase over at Tempest, you can get yourselves 10% off, which is
Yes, you
which is
can.
really a good deal. Yes.
So I've kind of come to a few conclusions. I was deep in thought late this afternoon and this evening after perusing every model on the planet, practically. Realizing around mid-afternoon that thinking I was looking at one model, and I was actually looking at another model. Um, Joe, can we go? I tease you about the fact that you want to go back to a rotary phone. Okay. And I do, and I
Yep.
admit, I tease you about that. But I will
Yep.
agree. I will agree with you on one thing. Can We don't have to go all the way back, but can we go back maybe, I don't know, 10 years, maybe 15 years, and just go back to what we had like 10 or 15 years ago? Because I'm just sick and tired of like running through a dozen different models. If it's even a dozen, it's probably more like 2 dozen. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of looking at things that are going in all sorts of different directions. I'm tired of looking at inconsistent 4 days out. There should not be the kind of inconsistencies that we're seeing, radical inconsistencies from run to run. And yet at the same time, here we are. I have no clue with regards to how to even remotely approach the system for the end of the week. Forget about the one for the weekend for the moment. Let's talk if there even is one. Um, there's a lot of different ways this could go, and I just am not sure which way to pull my hair.
Yes, you can read a number of the forecast discussions from Boston and from Albany and from New York and from Philadelphia and from Binghamton, and all of them, of course. But by the way, and I'm sure you noticed this, Joe, all of the weather services have now changed to a new format. When you read the area forecast discussions, they lead off with "What has changed,"
All
followed
right.
by key messages, then the discussions, and all this sort of stuff. And so far, and I'll just, as just an example of what we are anticipating for later in the week. Here is the discussion out of Boston. Expecting the pattern to become more amplified as we head toward the end of the week with colder temperatures making a return by Thursday night and Friday morning, and we're continuing to monitor the potential for a coastal low to form Thursday into Friday in the mid-Atlantic or just offshore. Confidence remains low on the potential impacts at this time as deterministic and ensemble guidance, both model to model and run to run, remain quite spread in potential tracks and timings. Ensembles indicate the low moving across anywhere from northwest Massachusetts, southeast Massachusetts, completely offshore. We'll continue to monitor trends as the details become more clear in the guidance, which we hope will happen in the days to come. But right now, whatever you want to go for, whatever the dart lands on the dartboard, it's likely to fit some model guidance for later on in the week.
So that's basically a long paragraph of several hundred words saying, I don't have a clue.
Don't have a clue. That's
Okay.
correct.
And I assume that if you just read the other ones, you'll probably say, I don't
You'll
have a
get
clue.
basically the same. You'll get basically the same kind of discussion in a different worded type form. So there you go.
I go back to what Content Weather Guy said about, all this nonsense with respect to teleconnections and all the rest of it. That the old rules don't seem to apply anymore. And you could sort of rationalize it any way you want by saying, well, we've got this, it's fine, it's going against that, and all the rest of it. You know what? I that doesn't help me, and it doesn't really help a forecaster try to figure out how this is all going to play.
I
And
love Joe. I love Joe Lopresti on the chat board. His comment, "Boy, Ralph, it sounds like you're in big trouble."
well, kind of. And on top of that, you've got the set. On top of that, if that weren't bad enough, at least if it was just that, we could control it, and we certainly have control of our own narrative here, both here and what we do. But my God, the Facebook cesspool is just out of control.
Absolutely.
It's awful. I have just continued. I hate to do. I'm not big on. I don't like to block people. I just don't. Um, but I do snooze them, and I'm just every 30 days I gotta just like snooze all these people because it's too much. It's so crazy and so disruptive because you and I then get we get pulled in and lumped with the same bag of coal that all the other ones are, and it's just really frustrating. And well, look, enough of that. I think we should maybe just get going on explanations. First, let's take care of the short range. If you'd like, you could do the radars tonight. You haven't done those in a while, because we do have some snow showers and snow squalls running around this evening. So if you want to,
And we
you want
had
to,
and we had one here in Putnam Valley around 5 o'clock. Uh, Snow came down hot and heavy for a short interval, enough to coat the grass, which was all but wide open
all right.
beforehand. I mean, there was no, there was hardly any snow. Now we have a coating again, and it also coated my car with snow. So it didn't last very long, but it was a band that came on through, and I suspect now that what we'll see through the overnight behind the system will be some rather strong wind gusts of 30 and even over 40 miles per hour at time, and that will continue until early tomorrow, and then the winds will die off, and we're looking for again a bit of a warm up later tomorrow and Tuesday and Wednesday before the next round of cold weather and that big question mark for later in the week comes our way.
All right. Well, get your radars ready off of UCAR while we still have UCAR, and and
Mm.
let and let's go to the. I'll go to the watches and warnings in the meantime, which really aren't much. We have actually a few counties in northern Maine with winter storm warnings and some winter weather advisories. The usual suspect places in New York State, north central New York and southwestern New York, northwestern Pennsylvania, and a few counties in the Appalachians and West Virginia under winter weather advisories. We have out in the west. Actually, the weather in the west is relatively tame. They've got the fog now, so whenever you see fog, you know that they're in the warm air, and everybody in the middle, at least for the time being, is quiet. Now, on the latest surface map, last night's cold front is offshore, but now the upper trough and the secondary cold fronts come on through, and that's the front that has the colder air behind it, and also has triggered off some snow showers and snow squalls, and that front goes all the way down into southern Georgia. I am now down to 30 degrees here. It's been a cold day. It's been in the 30s. It's been pretty much in the 30s all day long with a fairly gusty northwest wind. When it's windy here in North Georgia, it's miserable, let me tell you. High pressure in southern Illinois, back through Oklahoma. Got a warm front running through the Dakotas, and that separates us from the west, where Temperatures are relatively warmer, 40s all the way up into southwestern Canada. And we've got a little bit of moisture coming off the Pacific Northwest. And you can see clouds on the satellite loop rolling through there. And on the loop in the east, the old cold front activity is now over Nova Scotia and Newfoundland. And again, now the upper trough is moving through nice and clear across the south. A little bit of moisture gathering in parts of South Texas. And you got some moisture coming in to the Pacific Northwest. So here's the wide radar view. There we go. And the corners are covered, and the northern lakes are covered with some precipitation. But now it's time for Rayo's radars.
For what?
Rayo's radars.
Okay. Yes. Yes, we are going to do that
But you
right
were
now.
right, please,
We'll,
by all means.
so we'll
Don't
share
let
and
me stop.
we'll start off with Upton or New York City, the radar that is located out near Brookhaven Labs in Long Island. And I mentioned the fact that we had a bit of snow for a short oval of time. And there you see it. There's the band that came on through my house very quickly, very rapidly, then continued eastward across central, eastern Long Island. It's fading out now, but it was enough to bring a light coating to parts of our area wherever you had a bit of snow. It did enough to indeed coat the colder surfaces, and now it's away to the east, followed in by a clearing pattern that's moving into our area now, and that sky will be mostly clear, albeit rather windy during the overnight hours tonight. Looking over here at Boston, you see the residual effects of one front way offshore, and here's the residual effects of that front that came through my house, but as you can see, it's kind of breaking down now and fading out. So I doubt very much if Boston is going to see much of anything. If anything, they'll just see a wind shift line and a colder and more intense wind flow during the coming hours behind this trough of low pressure, which, again, this upper level system, this disturbance came on in and through. I noticed, Joe, that there were a lot of forecasts that were saying for today, for example, temperatures peaking in the morning and then rapidly falling in the afternoon. But again, the teleconnection, while upper level winds, while the surface winds were out of a west or northwest direction, you had to wait until the upper level winds aligned or phased with those lower level winds. That is when we had the snow conditions, the snow showers and squalls move through around 5 o'clock, and now the winds are again coming out of that north direction and bringing in that colder and windier airflow for overnight tonight. We can go, let's say, let's check out over the Great Lakes area. Here's Gaylord, Michigan. Well, there's nothing going on in Gaylord, so we'll move very quickly past that. Let's check out Buffalo. Buffalo has what looks to be some snow activity. The Bills, of course, winning their football game today, and they were down in Florida, defeating the Jaguars in Jacksonville. And as far as snow conditions, well, again, maybe a little snow shower and flurry activity initially. That is kind of diminishing now as we move into the overnight. It looks like western New York will be more or less mainly clear and dry. Let me show you the far Pacific Northwest. They've got another surge of heavy rain coming into places like Washington, Seattle, Portland, Oregon. This is one of those surges of moisture, an atmospheric river, if you will. They've had more than their fair share down in California. This particular atmospheric river, however, seems to be directed up again toward Oregon and especially Washington, and they are in for a very rainy night tonight if you're in and around Seattle and other places along the Pacific coast of Washington and Oregon.
And there you have it. And actually, there's one other place. Why don't you pop up something up in northern Wisconsin?
Oh, well, we can very easily go there. Let's go to Green Bay. Where are you, Green Bay? Oh, yeah, here you go. And they are showing right now some areas of snow shower and maybe even a few squalls. In fact, I would dare to say that indeed there are squalls. Take a look right here. the activity seems to be locally intense over to the east, to the west, I should say, of Green Bay. So they've got their fair share of snow flurry or snow shower activity to deal with during the coming hours.
Well, very good. You got it pretty much covered all because there's not really anything else anywhere. Everybody else is uh, is on the quiet side. So we'll check out what WPC has to say. And WPC, this carries us through next Monday. So I don't exactly know how to figure out what they, if there's one event or two events, because I know a few people are you getting worked up about the second event. There's some sort of second event next weekend. I don't even know if that's going to happen. Okay. Um, because of what's going on. A lot of that's going to be predicated on what happens with the first thing anyway. But they've got a half to three quarters of an inch of liquid just along the immediate coast. Well, it covers much of Maine, New Hampshire, eastern Massachusetts, and eastern Connecticut, and just kind of skims the half-inch line, coastal New Jersey down to North Carolina. Inland areas, a quarter of an inch. Of course, you got your usual pockets in the lake effect areas in upstate New York, where we're talking about melted inch and a half of liquid. Also in the Appalachians, half an inch to some isolated areas close to an inch. Across the deep south, we're talking about minimal precip through next Monday. So if you look at this, if you're looking ahead to that system for our southern viewers, uh, if there was going to be something of consequence, well, WPC doesn't think so because you're talking basically a tenth of an inch or less in most places, maybe in some spots a quarter. Like you get down to the Appalachians, you get a little bit higher here with what's happening in the east on Thursday. But this, at least in what WPC is looking at, they're thinking that the modeling for down the road is out to lunch, and then most of the from the Mississippi River Valley to the West Coast, except for the extreme Pacific Northwest, is basically dry and non-existent as far as precipitation is concerned. So, the game that's being played here is in terms of the upper air. So I think I want to spend a little bit of time before I get to that. Two things. Just hard, you didn't say anything mean or ugly to me, so I don't know why you don't need to apologize. There's nothing to apologize for. Uh, and I think I just answered your question with regards to my opinions on the Deep South, and I'll get into it on the maps as well. And I also like to say welcome to everybody on the chat board tonight, and those of you lurking in the background on tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. Whenever there's any kind of storm in the offing, or if it's in the news, or if it's rumored, the lurkers come in a big way, and we appreciate that very much. If you'd like to join the chat board and the conversation, by all means do so. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, turn your notifications on so you don't miss us. And at the very least, if you like the show, hit the like button because Rayo's got a bell that he rings at 100 likes, and it just doesn't feel right that we deny him that privilege of ringing that bell. So, all right, so let's look at this upper air. I got the European up because I think in terms of the modeling today, the European was probably the most dynamic. And, we're sort of in this flattish pattern. Generally, it's trough in the east, ridge in the west, and actually strong ridge building into California. And we've got this northwest flow, so we're getting weather systems that are coming down. Notice that little ball of white over Lake Winnipeg gradually expands, and then you start to see this area of blue. So this is a shortwave trough that is developing right from the Great Lakes down to the Gulf Coast as we move into Tuesday night and Wednesday. And one of those short waves coming down is rather vigorous, or at least it's modeled to be vigorous. You have a cutoff low there in Indiana Wednesday night that drops into Kentucky and West Virginia on Thursday, and then you'll notice up into the Northeast, you can see the bottom of what is it a low in Hudson Bay, northern Labrador, and that kind of stays separate. So this thing's allowed to dig. You got the Western Ridge building, and that cutoff low goes down to Virginia, North Carolina, then exits off the Delmarva Peninsula and passes just south and east of New Jersey and Long Island. Now, this creates a situation where you get some sort of developing storm system off the mid-Atlantic coast or near the coast of the Northeast. The usual rules that apply, at least from the standpoint of my own forecasting technique is I look at the track of the upper low, 50 to 125 miles or so north and west of that is where you would put the band of heaviest snows. If this were to verify, and I'm not saying it is, um, so that would suggest that there should be a 3 to 6, 4 to 8 inch snow band across New Jersey, Long Island, southern New England, and southeastern New England as it gets kicked out to sea. Now, a couple of issues I just want to mention. You've got a system right behind it. And anytime that you have a system, if this were clean, in other words, if there was no system behind this and all ridging, this would be a no-brainer, and snow lovers would be dancing in the streets and would be looking at would be looking at a major event. But we almost always have something behind it, and in this particular case, what's behind it is somewhat vigorous on the models, and that's going to impact how this behaves going to the east. Now, that's one model's view of all of this. There are a couple of other possibilities. I would point to the GFS, which has the same idea, just drops the cutoff further south down into Virginia, North Carolina, and it would swing the cutoff out further to the east, which would probably mean that maybe from New York City eastward, and particularly eastern Long Island and southeastern New England, have a stand the chance of getting some heavier snow. And then, of course, you've got the next shortwave coming down right behind it, which really amplifies to kick this along. But again, it's a problem. That's the GFS idea. But I will go to the icon. And the thing about the icon is it has been probably more consistent than any of the models. And here we have the icon, which, by the way, shows no cutoff. Just basically an open trough that just swings eastward and pulls out to the east. And you ask the question, well, what would that mean? Well, take a look at what it did on the surface. I mean, the icon is really basically a cold front, and that's all it is. You see where the surface low that it tries to develop, it's up in the Catskills, it goes up into Maine, and then it goes out, as opposed to, say, the European, which is doing something a bit different as it responds to its cutoffs. Oh, by the way, I haven't gotten to this one. I want to go to the 12Z European before I do the 18Z. So here's the 12Z European, which eventually gets a low going right near southern New Jersey in Delaware Bay and pulls it out to the east. And then the upper low gets involved. And you can see there's that little dark stripe of blue there. Okay. That matches up with what I was saying with respect to the upper low. And then, of course, you got the system right behind it, which on the European does absolutely nothing across the deep south, just hard. Okay. So we have that. Now I want you to take a look at the 18Z European, because this is, I know it's an in-between run. I keep telling myself it's an in-between run. But here's the cutoff in Indiana. Oh, that's for the weekend. I'm sorry. So here comes, oh, that was quick.
Yep.
Here comes the diving shortwave. Here comes the upper low into Ohio and northwestern Pennsylvania and into southern New York. There's a big difference between having a cutoff in northern Pennsylvania and southern New York and having one off the New Jersey coast. And then it pulls out to the northeast. So what do you get out of this? Take a look. You get an ocean development on Wednesday that goes out completely separate from everything else. And then everything is up in the north. You got a lower pressure sitting basically around Syracuse, north central New York, that goes into the Gulf of Maine. It's a cold front at best, and you wind up with nothing out of that. It gives hardly any precip here because everything is further north and going out. And again, I know a number of you have talking about the icon. It doesn't look like it's believable. Don't discount it. It could wind up being this way. If you don't get the upper low to dig down, you get not a flake, not an ice pellet, nothing. Unless, of course, you're up by the lakes or in northern New York or up in northern Maine. So, again, and Joe, the way I'm the way I'm leaning with this is I would probably, and I know if Dave Towers were on, he would just totally discount all of this. I'm not going to completely throw it off the table, okay? But it's sort of it's like a glass of water on the edge of the table, and it's your arm is about to reach for it, and if you move your arm in just the wrong way, that glass of water is going to fall to the floor and the glass is going to shatter. I think that's kind of where we are.
It's kind
Um,
of like that. It's kind of like the Moyle episode of Seinfeld. If any of you are Seinfeld fans, you know that there's a part in that particular episode where the Moyle talks to Elaine and says, "Young lady, why you put the glass right at the edge of the table, and then you knock it over, and now you've got glass in the rug." And now, 2 weeks from now, I'll be walking along and I'll be stepping on that and I'll be cutting my foot open. It's all sorts of possibilities that are in the realm when you. I like that analogy. Yeah, it's the same type of analogy also of what if an asteroid would have hit the Earth? Well, we've got one in 2029. It's going to barely miss us. It's going to miss us by about 12,000 miles. But if it could hit us, that this is what we're looking at now for later this week. And Joe, my own opinion about this is if it weren't for the GFS, because as you just pointed out, the icon, the European,
the
they
Canadian. Well, all right.
the Canadian,
The 18Z European. Okay. Just to be
right?
clear, it's the in between run that's doing that. The primary run at 12Z did not do that. It still has a bullish look to it. But go on. I'm sorry.
But what I'm saying is that for the most part, over the last few days, if you looked at the European, if you looked at the Canadian, if you look at the icon, you'd say just what you just said: simple cold frontal passage, some snow or rain with it. It moves offshore, it gets cold. That's it. I mean, no big deal. But the GFS and this run that we had at 12Z, the afternoon run today, showing some significant rain and snow falling on Thursday. And then after that passes on by, woof, here comes another system coming in for the weekend. This is the one that a lot of people are talking about, the second system for the weekend, which pretty much buries portion of the northeastern United States. But none of the other models are really showing that. Now, if there were forecast discussions out there from the weather services, Boston, Binghamton, New York, Albany, Philadelphia, they would, and if they said what's in their heart, which is, I honestly don't think that anything significant is going to happen. There might be a little precipitation at the end of the week, but I'm not going to say that. But they don't, because of what the GFS is showing. That's what makes them think, a second time and saying,
Right.
well, the GFS is. They're saying in their mind the GFS is showing something substantial. The GFS is indicating there could be one, if not two, significant coastal sets. So we can't really just push it off the table
Yeah,
and say
toss
no.
it. Right.
We've got to look at that. And so long as that still is on the table, that's why we're keeping everybody up in the air, so to speak, with the potential for later on this upcoming week. And until that happens, and don't forget now, when we get to tomorrow night and on into Tuesday, starting tomorrow night into Tuesday, guess what else we're going to have? We're going to throw the NAM into this situation,
Oh,
and we'll see
well,
what,
let's have a party.
and
You
then
know,
we'll see what the NAM is saying for this upcoming event later Thursday and Friday and into the weekend.
um, Toxic Jeff on the chat board. He's new and he hit the tip jar. Thank you, Toxic Jeff. I love that handle. I absolutely love that handle.
Hey, I worked for
It'd be
I worked
absolutely
for a guy. I worked for a guy for 17 years who was
right.
toxic,
Who
toxic
lives
Jeff.
that handle?
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
Who
he
knows? It
says.
might be that. It might be him.
Uh, well, he says so many Facebook weather pages in my area are posting big snowstorm coming and have snow maps out. Well,
Yep.
yes.
Yeah.
And, it's a general, the way that works is just look at a model run every 6 hours, find the worst case scenario, post it,
Yep.
and get clicks, make money. That's kind of how it works. I have the European 18Z ensemble. Okay. And just to show you the forecast problem here, you'll notice that there's a lot of the low setters, the members are all plotted on land. Now, there's going to be multiple lows with this because you got the upper low that you're dealing with, and where it digs and how it digs is so important. But you also have a cluster of coastal lows that are well out to the east, and probably in the area where you want to see the coastal lows is where it's all empty, which is just offshore.
Right.
So that's one thing to consider. I want to back to the 12Z because the 12Z is the primary run, and probably more important. And you'll notice that for the same time frame, the cluster of lows was over Chesapeake Bay, and I'm going to go out 6 hours, and the mean position was over Montauk. But in this case, at least, you do have a few lows that are out there to the south, more of them to the southeast, and the cluster of them to the northwest. So obviously, the members for a system 4 days away are all over the place. But to go back what I was saying with respect to how this is playing out, it boils down to what is the upper air going to look like? Because if it looks like this, and this is the 18Z European, you're going to get a cold front. Maybe you get some snow. Maybe you get some snow showers and maybe a few snow squalls with the upper low as it goes by. Okay. But a track of an upper low across northern Indiana and Ohio into southern New York and eventually into southern New England or central New England for that matter is going to be a cold front. Now, if we go back to the 12Z and you wind up with an upper low that digs down into Kentucky and West Virginia and passes off the Delaware coast, and then it's east of New Jersey, south of Long Island, that would be a problem. That would create a coastal snow event of some magnitude. Now, those are the variables. We've got models all over the place here. It's as I said, very complex because you've got this other crap that's back out to the west in Minnesota and Wisconsin, this other shortwave. And for those of you who were looking at some of the earlier runs of the GFS, which basically had, if you want to talk about the weekend, I'll go back. Let me go back a run or two. Let's go back to the 12. Yeah, so on the 12, for some reason, there's some kind of southern shortwave that gets involved. So you get moisture here in the south. So all the southern folks are getting all excited because of the blue in the northern half of Alabama and northern Georgia. And then eventually you get an Arctic front with a deepening low up the coast. And you wind up, with a 6-inch plus snowfall along the coastal plain. And this would be for, say, late Saturday night through the daytime Sunday. And of course, when we looked at the 18Z and you look at the European and you look at the other models, even the GFS has gotten rid of it because of the fact that there's not enough room, and the lead system develops differently than what was modeled before, so that's going to impact the one from behind. And there you have it. So I'm sorry if I'm not being more clear about where I'm going with this as far as a forecast is concerned, because at the end of the day, that's the bottom line. I think you got to mention the fact that there's a chance that there could be some snow. If you're out there, if you see out there, you got people putting up stuff. What they usually do, as I said, just cherry pick the worst case scenario and post it, get clicks, make money. That's kind of how it works in the cesspool of social media. And frankly, Joe, if it was up to me, I would get off most of social media. But you know what? You have to be there. And where else are you going to go? You could go to Instagram, but Instagram's a Facebook property. So you got the same cesspool there as you do on regular Facebook. You could go to X, and then you can have all the crazies to deal with. But there are actually a few, weather people that I do follow on X that I consider reputable. And I respect their opinions, like Content Weather Guy, for example, and a few others.
You'd be interested to know this, that for all of these weeks and months, I will go during the show to Dr. Judah Cohen's Twitter or X site to see what he's posted. And Joe, guess what? That won't happen anymore.
He's off X?
You want to know why?
Why?
No, he's not. He's not off X. I've never seen this before from any other person. Even Neil deGrasse Tyson hasn't done this. But apparently, when you click on the X or Twitter site for Dr. Cohen, you get the following message: "You're unable to view this post because this account owner limits who can view their posts." So, in other words, since he's limiting the number of people who could view his X or Twitter posts, unless I guess you're on his list, you can't see them. So now we
So
will no longer.
he basically made his Twitter post private.
Correct.
Okay, and um, I'm not surprised because some people.
I've never seen anybody, come out and say you're an idiot. Now I know we've had a few on our own. We've had a few on our own chat board when they've been disappointed in what Dr. Cohen has said or has posted in the past. But I've never seen anybody specifically on the Twitter or X site for Dr. Cohen say straight out to him, what the heck's wrong with you? No, no one's ever said that. But apparently something got under his skin because now he's limiting the amount of people that can read his posts on Twitter or
Well,
X.
you know what? I mean, I don't know this, but we do know that some weather people have gotten. I mean, I don't even want to mention it. I mean, but let's just say that they've had to deal with people that have made personal attacks, and you can't blame him if he took you certainly can't blame him if he took his X account private. It certainly is his right. I can't access it either. I was a follower of his, so so I don't
And
see it.
case in point as to what I said about people on our own chat board, here's Tom Contino saying, well, his track record has been poor the last 2 years.
Yeah,
And
but
that's all I
you
guess.
know what? He talks, but Dr. Cohen talks about the very broad pattern with respect to the polar vortex and other things that are going on. He really doesn't get into the day-to-day forecasting. So,
Right.
he's coming at it from a totally different angle. You can't really compare we can't compare what we do with what he does. His is far more elevated and far more technical than what we do. And we get pretty technical,
Correct.
but he gets over the top of our heads technical. And that's not a criticism, that's just an observation. And actually I think
Right.
it's a good thing because I usually learn from him when I read his stuff. So it's sad to see that he's um
That he pretty much is shut down,
yeah.
So,
Miss Fowlerite, I think, yeah, I didn't want to say it, but you just did. That's probably the reason that he has been attacked because of his, because of the polar vortex, and also because he is Jewish, his Jewish name, and that's sad. That's the sad world we live in, but that's the reality of it, unfortunately. Um, and we certainly don't tolerate that sort of stuff here. Uh, 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 Delaware weather guy, thanks for hitting the tip jar. Yes, we try to keep it sane. So you know what? You guys can all forecast shop all you want. We pretty much gave you the rundown of how things are happening and what's happening. Um, Hopefully tomorrow night we can drive a stake through the heart of this, one way or the other. I'm
I don't
ready for
think, I don't, I think it's not tomorrow night show.
Tuesday.
I think Tuesday night show
Tuesday. All
we'll
right.
have a
Well, you
good,
know what? I'll sharpen the
good
blade. I'll sharp I'll sharpen the blade. I'll use a quality wood to create the steak. And I'll get a few cloves of garlic, so in case it's a vampire issue, and we'll take care of it on Tuesday. But we'll be here tomorrow. So
yes.
um, I would just like to see if they all just sort of. I mean, they all seem to be going. That 18Z run of the European lately, though, has been squirrely. So I look back to the 12Z and think that, okay, this is one of the times where you would say, well, Joe, Joe Cioffi, it's the off hours run, and we really shouldn't pay that much attention to it. But it's hard not to pay attention to it because it is showing a possibility that is very real. That you could wind up with this as a simple cold front and an upper low, and you get, not very much out of
Well,
it.
whatever happens will happen. It may very well be. the models have been hinting and hinting about something significant later on this week. And then over the next day or two, they'll take it all away and say, oh, okay, there's nothing that's going to happen. And then just as we are about to hit the critical time frame, all of a sudden, they'll come all roaring back.
Well, we've
with
seen that,
the big,
it's not
and we've seen that.
unusual. We've seen that happen before.
Yep.
We're still like, 96 hours away at least from the beginnings of the process, because really the process of all of this starts Wednesday night after the first frontal boundary goes by. So we still have plenty of time, and there's a whole bunch of model runs to go with respect to this, and just basically watching what's happening in the atmosphere is which is far more important. You can't deny what's in front of you, so it's important to look at what's going on ahead of all of this, which is not really very much. So you're just going to wait for you got to look out in the ocean to see if there's a mechanism that's going to force this thing to dig further south, slow it down. What's going on in the west and in the northwest? Is there something there that's going to kick it along and make it move faster and be not as deep? These are all the variables that we have to deal with. So
And even
anyway,
a few nights ago, I'm not sure if it was Friday or Thursday night, we being Renata and I. Renata, and by the way, I don't know how many of you know on the chat board, she is a meteorologist. She is, in fact, we worked together. That's how we met. And she was looking at the upper air. I think it was on the GFS, or maybe it was the European, a couple of nights ago. And she said, "Look at this. Look at that." I'm looking at it, and they had the upper low, Joe, dropping from the northern Great Lakes all the way down, straight down into Georgia, and then coming back up. And she says, "When was the last time you saw something like that? A storm, an upper level storm that literally went straight south." She
right.
said, "How many times has that happened?" And I said, "Don't worry about it. It'll change." And sure enough, the whole idea of it has changed, and what we're looking at now will probably change and become altered at least one more time between now and, let's say, Thursday of this week.
Do you have Briller Jeopardy,
I don't know if I do. Let me check.
or do I?
Um, I, ba, 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 ba. We'll see in a moment. Do I have Ruler Jeopardy? Now what the heck is this? I'm trying to
I
bring
think
it.
I
I'm
ha-
trying to
I
bring this
have
up. I'm trying to bring this up. My screen turns white.
Okay,
Um,
I think I
let's
have it.
see. The last one I had was Wednesday.
Okay, I have it.
Um,
I got it. I got
oh,
it.
okay.
I got it. All right, so we're still on these January average snowfall in these cities for the month of January. So we're going to start with Milwaukee.
Oh, Milwaukee. Um, well, that's a good one.
Milwaukee.
Excuse me?
Milwaukee.
Yes. Which was a Pabst Blue Ribbon that came from Milwaukee?
Pabst Blue Ribbon.
The beer that made Milwaukee famous?
That's correct.
Yeah, okay. Milwaukee. How about 12?
12's a good guess. It's a little too low, and we have winners. Joseph Carr, Patrick Darcy, Carol DeCara, Magnolia P, and Frank R, 2130. At 14, Joe, 14.
Okay.
All right, let's go to Minneapolis. And I would just caution to be careful. Minneapolis.
Hmm. How about 12? I'm going to say 12 again.
That's very close. That is very close. And Rich Rothmansky and Chuck Cardillo with 11. 11. And the reason why I said to be cautious, because the natural reflex was to go for maybe a higher number. But when you look at when you look at Minneapolis's normals, the snowfall normals for January and February are actually lower than they are for December and March. So there you go, because they're usually so deep into the cold air.
Right.
Nashville, Nashville, Tennessee.
Nashville. 6.
6 is too high. Steve LaPointe's 4 is too high.
Really? Okay.
So Mac 3 is too high. But Patrick Darcy's 1 is too low.
So it must be two.
And that means now everybody's putting up the number 2. And yes, you're all geniuses. 2. 2 is the number. All right. Le Parc des Centrales, Joe.
Excuse me.
Le Parc des Centrales.
Oh, okay. Le
New York
Parc.
City.
How about? Well, we know that
Where only the
February.
best car tops are measured.
We know February is the month for snow in Central Park. How about? I know it's up there somewhere around eight. Eight.
Too low, not far, but very close. Actually, for a while there, I think before they adjusted the normals, January kind of barely passed February as being the snowiest month, but I guess maybe that changed. Uh, but 8 is a very good guess and very close. And Brandon Kasner, 5092. That's a new name, I think. Hi, Brandon. 9, Joe. Give Brandon a
Nine.
bell ring.
I will.
And Miss Fowler,
Welcome
I
to the
got 9 too. So
welcome
give
to
a
the
bell
chat
ring.
board and welcome to
Ring
the
that
John
bell
Joe
for
Show.
Brandon.
Yeah.
And San Luis,
St. Louis.
St. Louis.
St. Louis. How about 5?
Oh, you're getting them close tonight. 5 is close. And Rich Rothmansky gets it with Frank R2130 at 6.
6.
6. 6.
There you go.
And finally, we'll throw in a bonus for Caribou, Maine.
Okay. I'll say 27.
Good guess. A smidge too high, but good guess. Bobby Livingsworth at 54. That's a more than double. Okay. 24, 24, 25. I see a 25 from Michael McGuire and from William Uber. It's a quarter. 25 is the answer for Caribou. And
There you
Marky
go.
D, 25.
Yes.
All right. So I think we can close it out for tonight. I had
It
a
was.
I had a little bit of a crazy morning this morning because my choir director, I hit all my notes yesterday. Oh God, was I like a tenor form? It was great. But I nailed all my notes. The responsorial psalm and the gospel acclamation was unusual, and I practiced it all week, and I just nailed it. It was Clive Barnes of the New York Times said it was like the angels in heaven were singing. So I was very happy. I got good reviews. Uh, but she called me this morning because she was coming in. I go do the Saturday evening mass, and she found a stray dog on the highway on the way to church. And since she was going to be working all day today here and in another church, she didn't know what to do. So I ran out and got the dog from her and then took the dog to the dog shelter. And I don't know if it had a happy ending. They took the dog, which was my primary concern because I did not want to have to bring a second dog in this house, particularly this one, because I didn't know the dog was not chipped. So I don't know what shots the dogs had. Thankfully, she was, very docile and and just scared. But I did my good deed for the day, but it, kind of took out a couple of hours of my day too. So I'm a little emotionally worn. If we can
Well,
just,
one time our dog got out, not on New Year's Eve, but this was a year or two ago. He got out, and his harness fell off or came off. So he and all of his identification information is on there. So now he's roaming the streets, without the ID tag and without the harness and everything else. That really is kind of scary when at least if a dog runs out, say so long as he's got his tags on or whatever, if somebody finds him, they can contact us or whatever. He's also chipped, but you know, it's scary when you lose a dog and you don't have the collar or the details as to who might own him or where you might be able to return him. So hopefully, whoever owns that dog that you brought in today will go to the shelter and find him.
I hope so.
So,
William Uber says, "Do I sing in the shower?" No, Bill. I'm a tenor. I sing for an audience. I do not sing in the shower. So tenors are touchy. It actually reminded me of an old insult. Um, there was a years and years ago. Of course, you remember Joe, the great Tallulah Bankhead.
yes,
Darling, darling. You know,
really.
she was known for her quips. And at the she went to a Broadway show, and the actress in the Broadway show caught up with her after the show and said, "Oh, oh, Miss Bankhead, I'm really honored that you're here." And Tallulah Bankhead was, she was a crazy, out of her mind type of person. Just Google her, but she was very big on Broadway. And the actress said, "Can you give me some advice? Can you give me some advice?" About being in the theater, and she said, Tallulah Bankhead said, "Joe, darling, don't be an actress, be an audience."
Well, Tallulah Bankhead was big on radio in the
Yes,
1950s with a show called The Big Show.
right.
So she was very popular on radio, not necessarily television. That's where she really made her mark, I think. But we all remember Tallulah Bankhead. If you remember the Lucy Desi Comedy Hour, she was one of the guests on the Lucy Desi Comedy Hour. And Lucy always used to love to do a Tallulah Bankhead.
Yes. And Tallulah Bankhead lived hard. Okay. She was a drug addict. She drank. She was very active. Let's put it that way. Uh, in her nightlife. Okay. Let your imagination run away with you. It will get went in all different directions. Um, and she was also on Bat. One of the last things she did was played the Black Widow on Batman.
I remember that, yes.
Yes,
And in fact, it was very funny
where
last night on Me TV, and you talk about how sometimes life imitates fantasy. Last night on Me TV, they had the episode where the Penguin was running against Batman for mayor of
right.
and it was just hysterical watching that show. You
Well, in
think that
the Tallulah Bankhead one as Black Widow, that was the one where she had Aunt Harriet hanging from the rafters over a pool of boiling oil. And you just saw Aunt Harriet's legs swinging back and forth.
but but do you know what and I started laughing my head off. The episode last night began with Batman and Robin. They were on, it was like a scale, and they were on one side, and some ice that was melting was on the other side. And when the ice melted, their side
Right.
would go down into a giant vat of sulfuric acid.
Was that with Mr. Freeze?
No, no, this was with the
Oh, with
Penguin.
Penguin?
With Penguin. And so here you see, like, Robin says to Batman, he says, "Oh my God, Batman, a few more minutes and that ice will melt and we'll go right into," and he says, "Well, here goes." And he purposely jumps into the vat of sulfuric acid, and then he comes out. And Robin says, "Batman, how did you survive?" He says, "Fortunately, Alfred was wise to use an acid-proof uh, formula on my when he did the laundry. He put an acid-proof thing on my costume or my cow." And I'm
Right.
saying to myself, "Yeah, okay, I'll buy into that. But what about your face? What about your mouth? I mean, you're going to fall into acid. You're going to come out like, but oh
I
God."
know. Well, anyway, enough reminiscing about when television was actually good.
And at the end
And
of the episode, Batman wins the election over the Penguin for mayor. By the way, You know who appeared as a guest on that show? Don Wilson, Jack Benny's announcer, Don
Oh,
Wilson, and he appeared as a newscaster. He was Walter Klondike.
oh God.
And
All
at
right.
the end, they offered, and at the end, at the commissioner's office, Batman received not one but two phone calls. They was not identified, but each phone call offered him the chance to run for president in 1968. They actually used 1968
Did they?
in the episode.
Well, if you want a good show to watch, I'm actually sort of binge watching Fargo. Not the movie, the series Fargo on Hulu, and it's very good. If it, you know, it's a I would sort of describe it as a dark comedy slash drama. Uh, but I'm really enjoying it. So that's my recommendation. Watch Fargo, and we'll see everybody tomorrow night at 7:35 p.m. Say goodnight, Joe.
Say goodnight, Joe. Good night.
Night.